I want you to imagine you're standing in a town in America in 1850. It's a beautiful day. You ask someone, "Excuse me, what time is it?" And they tell you, "It's 12 o'clock, high noon." So you hop on a train. You ride for about an hour. You get off in the next town over and you ask the same question. And this time, the answer is 11:47. You didn't travel back in time. You didn't cross a time zone. Those don't exist yet. You just went into a different town. And in that town, it is officially, genuinely, a different time than the place you just left. This wasn't a glitch. This was just how time worked for basically all of human history. So here's the question for today. Who decided that the entire country should agree on what time it is? Why did they do it? And why were people so furious about it that some towns refused to go along with it for decades? Let's get into it. Okay, so to understand why this is weird, we have to throw out something you've believed your entire life, which is that time is just a number everybody shares. For most of history, time wasn't a number you looked up, it was something you observed. And the thing you observed was the sun. Noon, actual true noon, is the moment the sun is at its highest point in the sky. That's it. That's the definition people used. When the sun hits the top of its arc, it's noon, and you set your town clock to match. This is called local solar time, or local mean time. And here's the catch that breaks everything. The sun does not hit its peak everywhere at the same moment. The Earth is round, and it's spinning. As you move east or west, the highest point of the sun happens at a slightly different instant. Roughly speaking, for about 12 or so miles, you go east or west, true noon shifts by about a minute. So a town 60 miles to your west is running about 5 minutes behind you. Not because their clocks are wrong, but because the sun literally gets there later. And for thousands of years, this was completely fine. Nobody cared. If your town's noon was 4 minutes off from the town down the road, so what? You were never in both towns in the same afternoon. Information traveled at the speed of a horse. Your whole life happened inside a bubble where everyone's clock already agreed, because everyone was looking at the same sun. The United States in the early 1800s had, and this number is wild, thousands of local times. Every city, every little town, its own slightly different clock. And it worked, because nothing in the world moved fast enough to make it a problem. Until something did. The railroad. The train is the villain of our story, or the hero, depending on how you feel about knowing what time it is. Because the train did something no horse had ever done. It moved fast. Fast enough that you could blow through a dozen different local times before lunch. And suddenly, all those charming little town clocks became a nightmare. Think about it from the railroad side. You're trying to print a schedule. The train leaves Boston at, what? Boston time? Arrives in Worcester at Worcester time? Albany at Albany time? Every stop on the line is running its own clock. How do you build a timetable when no two stations on the route agree what time it is? The railroad's first solution was kind of insane. Each railroad company just picked a time, usually the time of some important city on its line, and ran its entire network on that. Which sounds fine until you remember that different railroad companies served the same stations. So you'd walk into a major station, look up, and see a row of clocks on the wall, each one belonging to a different railroad, each showing a different time. Pittsburgh Station reportedly juggled 6 different times. Buffalo had multiple. You needed a chart just to figure out when your own train was leaving. And it wasn't just confusing, it was dangerous. On a single track line, 2 trains running on 2 different clocks, both thinking they had the right of way at the same moment. That's not a scheduled hiccup, that's a head-on collision. People died because clocks didn't agree. The pressure kept building. The country was getting wired together. Telegraph lines, rail lines, faster than its sense of time could keep up. Something had to give. Enter a couple guys who decide to fix time itself. The first is a Canadian engineer named Sanford Fleming. And the story goes, and I'll be honest, this one's a little too perfect, so take it with a grain of salt, that Fleming once missed a train in Ireland because a printed timetable said PM when it meant AM. He sat there fuming and thought, this is ridiculous. The whole world needs one rational system of time. True or not, Fleming became the great evangelist for the idea. He proposed dividing the entire planet into standardized zones, slices of the globe, each one a set width, each one keeping a single uniform time. Step across a line, your clock jumps a clean hour. No more thousands of times, just a handful. The second key figure is an American named William F. Allen, who edited a railway guide and crucially actually knew how to get railroad executives to do something. Fleming had the vision, Allen had the spreadsheets and the phone calls. Well, the telegrams. And the railroads, who were sick of the chaos, decided they weren't going to wait around for the government, they were just going to do it themselves. They agreed on a plan, carved the continent into 4 big zones, Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific. Inside each zone, everybody keeps the same time, and they picked a date to flip the switch. That date was November 18th, 1883. They called it the Day of Two Noons. Here's what happened. On that Saturday, at noon, telegraph operators sent a signal down the wires, and cities all across the country reset their clocks to match their new zone. Now, here's the beautiful part. For most cities east of their zone's center line, the new standard time was behind their old local time, so the clocks had to be set backward, which meant that in those cities, the people stood there and watched the clock strike noon and then watch it tick back a few minutes and reach noon again. 2 noons in one day. They literally lived the same minute of the same noon twice. One newspaper described people standing in the streets watching jewelers' clocks waiting for the moment. It was a genuine event. The country, in a single coordinated instant, agreed to stop listening to the sun and start listening to a wire. And just like that, in an afternoon, thousands of local times collapsed into 4. It's honestly one of the most quietly radical things a society has ever done. No war, no revolution, just a telegraph signal, and a whole civilization rewriting the meaning of now. But, and you knew there was a but, not everyone was thrilled about a railroad company telling them what time it was, because think about what just happened. For your entire life, noon meant the sun overhead. It was a fact of nature, and now some corporation with a telegraph wire is telling you that noon is whenever they say it is, and it doesn't even match the sky anymore? A lot of people found that genuinely offensive. There was this powerful sentiment of, I will keep God's time, not Vanderbilt's time. Sun time was real. Railroad time was a man-made fiction invented for the convenience of train companies, and a lot of folks were not going to let a railroad reach into their pockets and reset their watch. So some towns just refused. They dug in. The mayor of Bangor, Maine, reportedly vetoed standard time and made the city stick with its own sun-based clock. Cities like Detroit and Cincinnati held out for years, stubbornly running on local time while the rest of the company marched to the new beat. For a while, you had this patchwork. Some places on standard time, some places on solar time, everybody slightly annoyed at everybody else. And here's the kicker. The railroads pulled all this off in 1883, but the United States government didn't actually make standard time the law of the land until 1918, 35 years later. So for over 3 decades, the official time of the country wasn't set by Congress. It was set by railroad executives, and everyone just went along with it because it was too useful to ignore. Time in America was functionally privatized. Now, if you're going to slice up the whole planet into time zones, you run into a very fundamental question. Where do you start counting? You need a line that starts at 0. Every zone is measured as so many hours away from that line, but somebody has to decide where that line is. And that's not a science question, that's a power question, because whatever country gets the line gets to be the center of the world's clock. So in 1884, representatives from 25 nations gathered in Washington, D.C. for the International Meridian Conference, basically to argue about exactly this. And the winner was Greenwich, a spot in London, home of the Royal Observatory. That line became the prime meridian, 0 degrees longitude, the place from which all the world's time would be measured. It's why we say GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. A little neighborhood in London quietly became the anchor for the entire planet's sense of now. And, because nothing involving humans is ever clean, France was not happy about this. They thought the line should run through Paris, and in protest for years afterward, they refused to say the word Greenwich. French time was officially defined as Paris Mean Time. Oh, and a quick fun thing, before all this, how did ships even get the exact time to navigate? Many ports used a time ball, a big ball on a pole that dropped at exactly 1 o'clock every day, so every ship's captain in the harbor could look up, see it fall, and set their chronometer to the same instant. The one in Greenwich has been dropping since 1833, and yes, that is exactly where the New Year's Eve ball drop comes from. You're watching a 19th century time signal. So, we've standardized time. Beautiful, clean, rational. The story should end here. It does not end here, because humans looked at this elegant system and said, what if we made everyone change their clocks twice a year for the rest of time? Enter daylight saving. The idea, shift the clock forward in summer so there's more usable evening light. This gets jokingly blamed on Benjamin Franklin, but he was basically being satirical. The real proposals came later from people like New Zealand entomologist named George Hudson, who wanted more daylight after work to go bug collecting, and an Englishman named William Willett, who hated wasting sunny mornings while everyone slept. But it didn't actually happen until there was a reason big enough, and the reason was World War I. Germany adopted daylight savings in 1916 to save fuel. More evening light meant less coal burned on lamps. Other countries scrambled to copy it, and when the US finally passed the big law in 1918, the one that officially made standard time legal, it bundled daylight saving right in with it. So, the same act that finally settled what time it is, in the same breath introduced the single most annoying time-related ritual in modern life, which feels about right. So let's zoom back out. Here's the thing I want you to walk away with. We treat time like it's part of nature, like it's just out there, objective, eternal, the same for everyone. But the thing on your phone right now, that synchronized universal everyone agrees on it number, that is not nature. That is an invention. It's one of the most successful technologies humanity has ever built, and it's so good that we forgot it was built at all. For thousands of years, time belonged to the sun and to your own little town. And then, in the span of a single lifetime, we tore all that up because we built machines that moved too fast for the old way to survive. We argued, we resisted, we cried about losing God's time, and then we let a telegraph wire and a handful of railroad men reach across a continent and reset every clock at once. The next time you glance at your phone and instantly know the exact same minute as someone 1,000 miles away, just remember, that used to be impossible. Somebody had to decide it, and somewhere out there in 1883, a whole country once stood in the street and watched noon happen twice.